All right, it is 7 p.m. All right, welcome everyone. Couple things coming at. Seems like a lot of these. We just started a little over a month ago, but it seems like a lot of these are coming from the airport. But at the airport again, I tried to find the quietest kind of little corner of the Delta Sky Club. But if there is some noise or people walking by, I apologize. I tried to find the quietest spot I could. And then the other thing, going to be a little bit shorter tonight. I board about 7:30, so I got to get out of here, get over to the gate, etc. But as always show up. Proud, I actually scheduled my flight back from Boston around this. I could have left. I was done with what I needed to get done in Boston this afternoon, but wanted to show up, so I actually scheduled a later flight so that I could still make it. That's my commitment to you guys, to show up each and every single week that I can. I mean, I can't guarantee I'll be here every week, but every week I can. And then on top of that, maybe most important, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And if you are a mother, again, happy Mother's Day. And if you haven't called or visited mom, that's as soon as the live stream's over, you call or visit mom. Don't text. Okay, you don't just text Happy Mother's Day. You call mom, or if you're nearby, you stop by and visit. That's the most important thing. All right, so welcome everyone. So just kind of starting at the top of the agenda. All the markets green this week. S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, Bitcoin, all green on the week. Biggest headline we had last week was, two biggest headlines. Jobs report beat expectations like we knew it would, bringing jobs back to America, 177 jobs added. Fed, we kind of joked last week, kind of as expected, Jay Powell didn't cut, but I tell you what he did just do. He cut his job. We joked about that last week. And listen, I know the Fed's not supposed to be political, but if they're going to play political games, then you have to pay the price for playing political games. You remember Jay Powell cut rates right into the election for no reason. That was purely a political ploy. He did that last fall. Okay, so he's playing the games. So if you're going to play the political games, then you have to deal with the consequences. Okay, he should have cut rates. Markets would have loved it. And guess what? The clock's ticking, as we talked about last week. Don't let the door hit you in the ass. Jay Powell, you made your decision. You lay down with dogs, you get fleas, okay? And he chose to lay down with dogs, you get fleas. Now pack your bags and beat it. Next guy will cut rates. So we'll get a rate cut this summer. Market will love it. And so anyway, but again, we kind of knew he was going to, hold tight. No real surprises there. Was kind of expected. I just thought, like going back to last week, I thought he might cut the rates just to save his job. But he chose, he made his choices. Now you deal with them. We all deal with the repercussions of our actions every day. Then UK deal, trade deal last week. Thumbs up for that. We haven't gotten confirmation yet tonight on the China deal, but it's supposed to be done. I think tomorrow morning. I think they announced the time, 9 or 10 a.m. We'll know more about the China trade deal. But as of right now, sounds like we have a deal. Just don't have the details, but you never know. Who knows what could happen in the next 14 hours. But because of that, futures absolutely ripping. Dow futures were up by 500 points. Now I'm going to come back to that. The reason you probably see futures, pulling back a little bit. There's a reason for that. I'll come back to that. But pending what we hear this morning or in the morning on the China deal, that's why the market reaction. Now I'm going to jump over and I actually want to share my screen. If you're wondering why futures aren't even higher, I have a very good reason for that. And that is right. Let me share my screen. It is right here. Okay. Now, Trump just, a couple hours ago said he was going to announce the biggest, have his biggest post ever. And this is huge. Okay. And this, in my opinion, is why futures aren't even higher. Because guess what? Get ready to short some pharma companies. Okay. Like basically, we know for decades, the Americans particularly have been gouged on prescription drugs for decades. A lot of people, like a lot of you might, like people go overseas to get stuff. It's the pharmaceutical industry in the US, complete scam. They should not be allowed to advertise on TV either. One of the reasons they advertise on TV is so that they can tamp down bad news about their drugs. Like a lot of you might not realize that. Why is there a pharmaceutical commercial every other? Like there's a TV over there right now in the Sky Club. There's a pharmaceutical commercial, Sky Rizzy. I don't even know what the hell it is. I don't know what it does, but it's literally playing right now. They don't play those commercials. They don't buy that ad time to get people to buy the drugs. Like a lot of people don't realize this. Well, they say they are. They say they're buying the advertisement time. Oh, hey, we want to market our products. We want to help people. No, what they're doing is they're, in essence, bribing the news and the media companies so that way when there's a narrative that needs to be spun, well, hey, your biggest sponsor doesn't want you to talk about that. Maybe you don't talk about that. Now, they might not say it indirectly. Well, we all know to follow the money. And when they're advertising literally every other commercial, well, who's going to control the narrative in, traditional media, mainstream media, whatever you want to call it? They own the TV companies. They own most of the newspaper companies. So that doesn't really affect us from a trading perspective. What it does is weigh down on futures. Because again, there's going to be a lot of selling across the board, whether it be tomorrow and next week and next month, because guess whose profit margins are going to get hurt? And I couldn't be happier. Pound them, make them compete in a real market. This scam of the U.S. pharmaceutical system that we have, which I don't take any. I take care of myself, so I don't take any, but I know how much of a scam it is. But that's the only reason this post right here is the biggest reason that futures aren't up even more. Okay. So let me jump back here. Let me go back to my agenda. So those are the two big things. Then ABTS, actually, let me share my screen again. Do this, and we'll go over ABTS and a couple other stocks on the watch list. So I want to get to the watch list so I don't forget. NXTT was a 3-waiver on Friday. This thing just kind of started moving out of the blue. No real news, no real reason for the move, but squeezed from 28 cents up to $1.76, and then did that 3-wave pattern. So you get that first move, then a retest of the high, and then the third move in after hours. So the kind of the teaching moment from NXTT, anytime you see a low float stock, kind of make these types of, 2 moves, man, you want to be ready for that third move, because basically what has happened is it's sucked in shorts both times. And then, in after hours on Friday right there, to me, now, if you traded NXTT earlier in the day, well done. All the recipe was there for, a squeezy type stock. But what's great about these, especially in after hours, is the third wave on a 3-waiver is always the most forceful. And what was great, it was in after hours, so no volatility halts. Like the thing with NXTT, very difficult to trade during the day because it would just halt, all afternoon kept halting. But then what you can do, especially when you catch that third wave, is no volatility halts. So that's why it just went straight vertical at after hours, because the stock could finally trade the way it wants to. Like these, remember, volatility halts are created by the exchange. It's supposed to help people. I've said many times, when I do get elected to Congress, not if, but when, it will happen. Probably when I'm 60, I'm kind of saving my time. But 2 things I'll do: outlaw the PDT. It's the dumbest rule ever. Now, it doesn't affect me, but Many people struggle with the PDT, and it actually does the opposite of what it's intended to do. The PDT actually forces bad decision making. In the wise words of Ronald Reagan, the 9 most dangerous words in the dictionary are, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." And the PDT is a great example of that, as well as volatility halts. The volatility halts are supposed to be there to lower the temperature, to protect the average investor, but all it does is just screw up the price action, creates panic buying and selling, and in my opinion, does the exact opposite of what it was intended to do, much like the PDT. The PDT is supposed to protect the small trader, does the opposite. It forces bad decision making. Like, you hold stocks you would never hold. You trade into the market close because you're hoping that that you can use it overnight. Exact opposite. So I will outlaw those when I get elected about 9 years from now. And then, speaking of that, now this is another thing that I do want to give you a tip. If you do remember, PDT only applies to margin accounts. And I think a lot of you are trading with margin accounts because you think you have to. You don't have to. Okay. Remember, we used to have a longer time for cash settlement. That time is now reduced right now. So in the olden days, a lot of people got frustrated with cash settlement and it kind of corralled them a little bit. Now, these days, your cash settles much quicker. So if you are aggravated by the PDT, definitely consider a cash account. In my opinion, if you're new to trading, you shouldn't be using margin anyway. Margin cuts both ways. It increases your gains, increases your losses. And so I would beg you, if you're new to trading, please never ever use margin. Go into your margin. And then the other downside of having a margin account is if you have under $25,000 in cash in your account, you're bound by the PDT. So I don't think there's any reason for any new trader to have a margin account. Now, people will say, well, you need a margin account to short, and you are correct. But I would also say the same thing. If you're brand new to trading, I would beg you not to short. You end up shorting an NXTT, and your entire account is gone. So I think there's only downside to margin accounts. So anyway, NXTT, number one morning fader idea, ran up big in after hours, fading right now. We're looking to wait for this to open. Look at the 9:30 a.m. open. And typically these morning faders, it's going to gap down at the open, it's going to base, and it's going to turn. Then what I want you to do, use that Oracle signal from the algorithm for your entry, and then use the opening candle low for your stop loss. Because with morning faders, if they broke the morning lows, it's all over. If NXTT gaps down and does not bounce, it's probably going to fade all day. It's probably going to be all over with. But if it pulls at the market open, bases, and then starts to trend higher, that's your signal. And then ABTS, I'm not going to go over the full watch list because of the lack of time, but this is another big spiker into the market close, and another stuck short squeeze, looking for pushes through 6 on this guy. So let me jump over here and do this. Go back here. And let me get back to my agenda, and then I'm going to bust out of here, guys. I do again apologize for keeping it a little shorter, but I do need to get to my flight. Let me just make sure I hit everything on the agenda. I'll make sure to go a little longer next week. Maybe I'll do like an hour next week, because I like to do the Q&A. Like, the big goal of doing these live is to be able to answer questions. I'm not going to do any Q&A tonight because of time. So went over the 2 main on the watch list, went over the UK trade deal, the China deal. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. And yet again, I do apologize for the short session, but I did still show up, and I moved the flight around to make it work. So listen, big thing I want you guys doing tomorrow morning. It's kind of the same theme, but we want to be scanning for low float stocks with news, float rotation as well. A lot of you guys have the float rotation calculator, or what I like to call the money bar. If you're struggling with the best stock of the day, always be looking for the lowest float, highest volume stocks with a catalyst. Now, understand that sometimes we don't have a box checker. Every week we don't have or every day we don't have a box checker. But if you're, again, you can only trade every now and then. A lot of you can't trade every day. You should be focusing on those box checkers that have float rotation and have a catalyst. Now, you might say, hey, ABTS and NXTT didn't have any news and they still ran, but especially NXTT, I still say you could have waited hours for the execution of that third wave into after hours with no volatility halts, and that was the best entry. Now, ABTS, you would have had to been crazy fast, but it is setting up into tomorrow as well. But when it comes to consistently repeatable setups, it is those morning faders, those pre-gappers that then trickle lower into the market open and hit the Oracle signal. Now, one thing I do want to point out as well, pre-market. Okay, pre-market's going to be crazy hot tomorrow. And if you had, we went over the RCT pattern, I think 2 or 3 weeks on here. I went over the RCT a few times. One thing I do want you guys to know is that I do have an algo for RCTs now, okay? Looking for those big pre-market gainers, waiting for that 5-minute candle. So when it comes to tomorrow morning, and this is the last point I want to finish on, is in pre-market, not to review it for the 500th time, but we've done it a few times. When it comes to trading pre-market, pre-markets can be hot. I'm going to be up at 4 a.m. like always. You want to look for that initial vertical spike, no pullbacks on the red on the 5-minute chart, and then you're waiting for that first red 5-minute candle, and you're going to use that for both your entries and your stop losses. Okay, and we've had a bunch of these this week, and I expect to have about 15 RCTs tomorrow morning, barring some sort of headline change around China overnight. Like, who knows what could come out tonight? I don't know what time it is in China. It's probably, the day is probably just starting in China right now. So barring any sort of like complete out of left field that the trade deal is off, we're going to have about 15 RCTs before the market even opens. And if you're struggling with identifying those, I do have an algo that looks for those now, does it all automatically, has built-in charting, alerts you to when they put in that first 5-minute candle. You can run it on your phone. It's really handy, especially if you want to trade in pre-market, which is crazy hot right now. And especially here any day, it's going to be extended pre-market. I think at some point this summer is when we go to 22-hour trading. They haven't announced it yet, but once we go to 22-hour trading, after hours and pre-market are going to get even hotter. And I guarantee RCT is going to be the best way to trade those times. All right. So again, guys, I think I avoided most of the noise. I don't know how much traffic there was, but have a great night. Sorry for the shorter session. Sorry for no Q&A. Next week, I'll make sure to go a little longer. Have a great night, everyone, and we will see you next time.